This film contains very disturbing images, says Jon Snow, in the dramatic opening of Channel 4's Sri Lanka's killing fields. Yes, we agree, disturbing indeed. Doctored footage and deliberate lies are presented as authentic. Numbers are pulled from thin air and presented as fact. Sources are not mentioned, faces hidden, voices distorted. Just like the truth, unmentioned, hidden, distorted. The very title itself represents an outlandish and cynical attempt to evoke memories of the Khmer Rouge. Channel 4 does not claim ownership of any footage, facts or figures, faces or names. Yet to an uninformed audience, Channel 4, Sri Lanka's killing fields, could appear to be a great story. It is said that the trust of the innocent is the liar's most useful tool. Thus, the Channel 4 production begs review. Let's begin at the beginning. Channel 4 shows footage of a protest, a spontaneous demonstration.
News that the UN's international staff were leaving spread quickly, and crowds of frightened Tamil civilians besieged the UN base.
That's what they would like us to believe. Civilians are shown outside a UN office pleading with personnel not to leave.
Have compassion, stay and watch.
Let's shed some light on this. Was it all spontaneous though?
ஒவ்வொரு தொழிலுக்கும் ஒரு சங்கம் இருக்குது. அதுபடியே எங்களுடைய சங்கத்தால் நாங்கள் வெளியே கடை திறக்க வரும்போது எங்களுடைய சங்கத்தில் சொல்லப்பட்டது எல்லாரும் சந்திக்குவாங்க. நாங்கள் ஒரு UN நிறுவனம் வெளியேறுது, அவையே நாங்கள் இங்கிருந்து போகாமல் தடுத்து நிறுத்தணும் என்று சொல்லி அதான் நாங்கள் அன்றைக்கு நாங்கள் போனோம். சங்கம் சகல சங்கம் வந்து இயக்கத்தோட தான் இங்கே நடத்தப்படுது. எல்லாம் இயக்கம் எந்த ஒரு நாங்கள் ஒரு ஊர்வலம் நடத்துகிற என்ன இருந்தாலும் அவங்க செய்யலாது. சகல இதுவும் அவங்க நாட்டுப்பாட்டுக்கெல்லாம் இங்கே இருந்தது.
Stage managed. That's the term that Channel 4 ought to have used, but did not. Channel 4 fails to mention that Tamil UN staffers and their families were held hostage by the LTTE. Neither is there mention of the fact that UN personnel and their families of around 200 people continue to serve in LTT-held areas until the end, or that 9 were forcibly recruited by the LTTE. Channel 4 gives us numbers, interesting ones.
The deaths of as many as 40,000 people, possibly far more.
Casual, off-the-cuff claim of 40,000 is the first big lie. Gordon Weiss, the former spokesman based in Colombo and asked to leave by the government of Sri Lanka, had an axe to grind and an upcoming book to promote. Upon his resignation from the UN, and in his personal capacity, over 1 year after the end of the war, Gordon Weiss says 10,000 to 40,000. In fact, even the UN specifically disassociated itself from it. Channel 4 picks 40,000 and runs with it. The fact is, the UN had estimated in June 2009 that around 7,000 people may have died. The truth is that the UN officially states that the 7,000 figure is based on unreliable sources. Let's look at the reality. The highest estimate of the total population in Vanni districts, including LTTE cadres and civilians, was a little over 300,000 towards the end. It was accepted by all that even this could have been an exaggeration, since the LTTE was known to inflate numbers to secure greater volumes of food and medicines to the areas they controlled. Let's go with the 300,000 figure. The total number of all the people registered in the receiving centers was 293,800. Therefore, first and foremost, the 40,000 figure is not credible. It is in fact impossible. Therefore, the maximum number that needs to be accounted for includes the number of LTTE cadre killed in combat, and also includes civilians who died in the crossfire, those who the LTTE shot dead as they tried to flee, and those who fled the country towards the end of the war without registration via sea and land routes to India. Fact is that all estimates of deaths during this period were purely based on figures reported by the LTTE Voice of Tigers and by government doctors still based in the Vanni and held hostage. They're now free to talk. Let's listen.
The media people always, they like to contact doctors in the hospitals, and at the same time LTT also threatened to doctors to give the information outside. So sometimes they are coming with a list of numbers, casualty numbers and death numbers. So they asked to give the details. Not only me, myself and Dr. Varadarajan and Sanmaraja, all three were requested during that time.
We were in the LTT control area. When the LTT told like that, we have to tell, we have to do.
அந்த சிலது சொல்லாவிட்டாலும் அந்த புலியலங்குரல் ரேடியோக்கள் நாங்கள் கூறியிருக்கிறோம் என்றும் சும்மா சொல்லி இருந்துட்டு எங்கள்கிட்ட வந்து பேட்டியும் எடுப்பார்கள். ஒன்றும் சில நேரம் கொடுக்காவிட்டாலும் சில நேரங்களில் வந்து இப்படி இவர் கூறினார் என்றும் சொல்லிவிடுவார்.
It was not only about distorting figures. The lie had to be dressed up. Channel 4 dressed it up with a cast of characters.
Vani Kumar was a young English Tamil woman who had left London to spend 6 months with relatives in Sri Lanka.
Vani Kumar was a full-time and active member of a terrorist organization. She in fact arrived in Sri Lanka on the 28th of February 2008. She worked in a terrorist cell in London and fronted as the UK Tamil Youth Organisation leader. One of the surrenderees, a colleague and another key operative in the LTTE's international unit under Castro, knew her well.
Vani ஞானகுமாரன் போட்டா அவ எங்களோட நின்று ஐயக்கம் எங்களோட நின்றா அவ ஐயக்கம் 2008 ஆண்டுக்கு முதல் அவ லண்டன்ல டிவைஓ இந்த லண்டன் டிவைஓன்ற லேடிஸ் கோஆர்டினேட்டராக இருந்தவ. இப்போ இந்த அவ இங்கே வந்து அவ இங்கே வன்னிக்கு வந்தா 2008 ஸ்டார்டராக வந்திருக்கணும்.
For Channel 4, however, Vani Kumar was a volunteer helping out.
Vani Kumar herself, here in the pink dress, began working as a volunteer with the man running the hospital, Dr. Samaraja.
He's a great person. He's an example of how a doctor should be.
It was just like a normal, like a knife that you would use at home. And he said, well, hold his mouth, someone hold his hand, someone hold the other leg, just gonna cut it off. And he's like, I looked at him and it's like, he's just gonna cut off a 6-year-old boy's leg without even giving any local anesthetic. How is it possible?
Let's hear what the doctor has to say.
மயக்கமே வந்து கொடுக்காமல் வெட்டினதுன்றது அது அப்படி ஒரு சம்பவம் நடைபெறவில்லை. அதிகமான ஆட்களுக்கு நாங்கள் வந்து அதிகமான 100% மற்றது சிறிய சின்ன ரசிங்கள் அதை செய்திருப்போம். ஒரு ஆளுடைய காலை என்றால் நாங்கள் மருந்து கொடுத்து தான் செய்திருப்போம். நீங்கள் இதை வந்து மற்ற வயிற்று ஆப்ரேஷன் செய்து நாங்கள் மயக்க மருந்து மசில் ரிலாக்ஸன் அதுக்குரிய மருந்துகளை கொடுத்து தான் நாங்கள் செய்கிறாங்க.
Let's move on to shelling. Let's hear Gordon Weiss.
By May 2009, there had been roughly 65 attacks on these medical points that were treating civilians.
அது முற்றுமுழுதான பொய். நாங்கள் தை மாதத்திலிருந்து பார்க்கின்ற பொழுது கூடி எங்களுக்கு வள்ளிமரம் வைத்தியசாலை புதுக்குடிப்பு வைத்தியசாலை ஒரு தடம் வெள்ளியம் வைத்தியசாலை எங்கள் வைத்தியசாலைக்கு அருகாமையில் விழுந்திருந்தது. அதை விட முள்ளியாகல் மேற்கிலே ஒரு தடவை விழுந்திருந்தது வைத்தியசாலைக்கு வாசல் பகுதி. அதே மாதிரி முள்ளியாகல் கிழக்கிலேயும் ஒரு தடவை விழுந்திருந்தது. ஆனால் அதுவும் ஒரு கரையாத்தான் விழுந்திருந்தது.
Well, 65 shells didn't drop. How about the GPS coordinates he talks of?
The attacks on these medical spaces seem to be so consistent that the Tamil government doctors requested the ICRC to stop providing the coordinates to the government.
ICRC வந்து ஃபிக்ஸ் அடித்து வைத்தியசாலையை உறுதிப்படுத்ததை மற்ற தமிழ் டாக்டர்கள் மறுத்தார்கள் என்று சொல்லதை நான் அதை முற்றுமுழுதாக மறுக்கிறேன். ஏனென்றால் இந்த விடயத்தில் வந்து அங்கே வைத்தியர்கள் வேலை செய்யணுங்க இந்த விடயத்தை முதல் தொடக்கத்திலிருந்து அது நான் என்னுடனே நேராக கதைத்து என்னுடைய வைத்தியசாலைகள் எது மாத்தளம் வைத்தியசாலையை எனக்கு அவ்வளோ தெரியாது. இந்த மாத்தளம் வைத்தியசாலை நான் முதல் ஆரம்பத்தில் வேலை செய்துட்டு அப்புறம் கிடக்கிட தான் போய் இந்த மெட்டர்னிட்டி கேஸில் செய்துட்டு வரணும். அதுக்கு டாக்டர் வரதராஜா தான் இன்சார்ஜாக இருந்தவர். ஆனால் வள்ளிமலம் வைத்தியசாலை சரி, முள்ளியாக்கள் மேற்கு, ஆனந்தபுரம், முள்ளியாக்கள் கிழக்கு வெள்ளாமுள்ளியாக்கள் வைத்தியசாலை போன்றதுக்கு நான் பொறுப்பு வைத்தியதையாக இருந்தேன். அது தொடர்ச்சியாக தேவிபுரம் போன்ற பகுதிகளில் தொடர்ச்சியாக அந்த இடங்களில் ஒவ்வொரு வைத்தியசாலையிலும் ஐசிஆர்சிஎம் ஃபிக்ஸ் அடித்தேன். இதை பற்றி எந்தவித வைத்தியர்களும் என்ன அப்படி செய்ய வேண்டாம் என்று முரண்படவில்லை.
When we are moving or working our hospital, during the war time, all our makeshift hospital, we inform to Health Ministry over the phone and written the letter, as well as we inform to ICRC also. We maintain up to the final day, May 15th also, we inform where we are working. Twice a week or monthly we send a situation report to Health Ministry. We give all our hospital details and staff details and everything, and over the phone also we inform as much as possible.
Despite the LTTE propaganda machinations propagating accusations of shelling of medical centres, in reality only one such occurrence was actually reported during the entirety of the conflict. This was in Puthukudiyaruppu Hospital in February 2009. Yet Gordon Weiss is intent on pushing the LTTE lie. Perhaps Gordon Weiss is not lying. Maybe he was misled, just as he was misled about the civilian deaths. Either way, Gordon Weiss's reliable sources on the ground seem to have failed to mention that the LTTE deliberately moved command centres and artillery guns into hospital premises and no-fire zones.
In Puthukudiyaruppu Government Hospital, 2 cells fell within the premises of government hospitals, but at the time ICRC also there. But ICRC also confirmed. I spoke to one ICRC officer. He said LTT had a commanding center for their military operation very close to within the 100 meter within 100 meter from the hospital, and they mounted a gun, anti-aircraft gun, very close to the government hospital. So they used the area which was closest to the government hospital for their military activity.
Channel 4 correctly talks of the obligations of the state, not just to provide medicine, but also food, water and other essentials.
Military forces have an absolute obligation to ensure that the civilian population is not starved. In other words, they should have access to food, they should have access to drink, they should have access to medicine.
Amnesty International is absolutely spot on.
Actually, I know I met additional government agent Mr. partI, who was there at the time until May 15. He came with doctors also. I met him and I asked the data. So government sent several tons of rice and parapu and dal and other flour, wheat flour to through the ICRC ship and another big ship.
8 times the government sent the medicine to that area, but few items were shortage, but reasonably we received the medicine and we treated up to the end to the publics, civilians as well as admitted guarders.
For medical drugs and medical items, we was request to health secretary over the phone and by the written letter. They sent 8 times to medical items and other drugs by the ICRC ship. May 8 also we received a lot of medical items. That is enough for this those time.
It must be noted that although the LTTE claimed to be running a de facto state, it was the government of Sri Lanka, through the good offices of the ICRC and the World Food Programme, that fed and sent medical supplies to the terrorist-held areas. A consultative committee on humanitarian assistance was set up in September 2006 to provide assistance to the conflict-affected population on lines suggested by the co-chairs of the peace process, Japan, USA, Norway and the European Union. Chaired by the Minister of Disaster Management and Human Rights, this committee included representatives of all relevant line ministries, the Commissioner General of Essential Services, Divisional Secretaries of the Northern Province, the US Ambassador, Robert Blake, representatives of the EU Presidency, Ambassador of Japan, UN Resident Coordinator, all heads of UN agencies and the heads of ICRC and ECHO. Channel 4 seems to have been blind to all of this. Channel 4 underplayed the brutality of the LTTE. There's no mention of the LTTE shooting those who tried to escape. It was not a war without witnesses. The doctors saw.
January 2009, people and ourselves, most of the doctors were frustrated, and but we are frustrated what was happening there. And myself, I asked a lot of LTT second rank leaders, especially Politavan like that, to release the people, because LTT held the people forcefully. People want to move out from the LTT held areas to the government controlled areas, but they refused. They forcefully held the people. Actually, people has taken the risk to cross that lagoon to escape from the LTT held area. But these people started to fire people. They said they are the protectors of Tamils, but at last they have started to fire, and they killed a lot of civilians.
It all ended on the 19th of May 2009. It did not end for the hostages who were rescued by the Sri Lankan security forces. Channel 4 had a grim story and a treated video to show.
These were brutal places, and where stories of rape, violence and disappearances were rife.
Was there rape, disappearances? Those who were in these facilities, if anyone, would surely know.
நாங்கள் வந்து இப்போ 2 வருஷமாச்சு.